Welcome back, everyone, to part two with Monte Wyatt. This is Betska and Raj and Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. And in part one of this podcast, we had a great discussion about the difference between leadership and management. So if you haven't watched it, please go back and watch it. But Monte, again, welcome. We are curious about what is a mindset shift that separates companies that scale from those that stay stuck. What is
There
that?
is a there is a mindset that I think is very important. It's called abundance thinking.
Ah,
The opposite of abundance is scarcity. Scarcity
yes.
says we can't. Scarcity says we don't know how. Scarcity says there's no way we can do that. Abundance says there's more than enough. And abundance also says, how can we? And I think that's a huge mindset of being able to think, how can we? In a world of always having opinions, in a world of finding ways that can work or saying why something won't work, the successful companies and successful individuals are always thinking, how can we find a way? How can we
Yeah.
do this different? How can we see a different result? How can we become more efficient? That's an abundant mindset. And I think the organizations that really accept that and work towards that are going to get greater results than everyone else because it's thinking differently of how do we use our resources? How do we use technology? How do we use our expertise in different ways to get different results? That's an abundant way of thinking. And the world teaches us to think scarcity. There's only so much to go around. There's only so many good ideas, only so many opportunities. No, that's not the truth. The truth is there's more than enough out there as long as we are thinking differently and more abundantly and always asking that question, how can we? And I think that's a barrier for those companies that are not thinking that way.
Yeah. Very good. And so, what are some of the blind spots that people have around abundance? What are those blind spots? Like Raj and I really understand the power of the subconscious mind. There's a lot of negative beliefs hiding underneath that we don't know are there. And so, what are some of the bigger blind spots to people really living that role of how can we and thinking about an abundance mindset? What are the blind spots?
I think a blind spot is comfort. We all
Mm.
get comfortable. We all get
Uh-huh.
comfortable with how things have been. We've been successful for so many years. Why would we change? This is the way we've
Yeah.
always done it. We are in a comfort zone. My skills are a comfort zone. My beliefs are a comfort zone.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
we have got to get out of our comfort zone to think differently, to act differently, to find different solutions. And I think that's a blind spot that I don't care what your role is. We
Mm.
all have certain levels of comfort that we don't want to let go of.
Yeah.
And I think that's a powerful thing that we've got to overcome is that comfort level.
Hmm. How about fears? People have fears, like Raj was talking at the pause there about, losing their positions or, inability to speak with someone, communicate with someone. There's a lot of fear in that. How big is fear compared to abundant comfort?
I think they're very much connected because we believe in that comfort zone because we don't want to change. We see things that might be different that we are uncomfortable with. It's a fear of the unknown. It's a fear of what somebody's going to think of us. It's a fear of my life is going to be different if I make this change. And it comes back to that comfort. We've got to be willing to get out of comfort and overcome that fear. And it might be from our childhood, it might be from a
Yeah.
previous job, it might be from a life change that we've gone through that we don't want to experience again. So we get comfortable, but we've got to overcome that, and that's where that fear keeps us down. It really does.
Yeah. I think that's a very big issue um, in my business as well. getting people to go outside of that comfort zone, you know.
Hmm.
Like we get comfortable in our homes with our spouses, our children, our homes, and so on, and people just we've known that for years. People don't like to change.
Competency also very important because I have seen whenever I recruited, so I have noticed sometime the immediate interviewer person, they don't want to hire good qualified person because he or she feel insecure about the next. This is also big problem. So competencies, uh, these days in the corporate world, competency is going very down way in every organization because the immediate boss or the powerful person, he or she feel fear. So they are
Hmm.
Hmm.
hiring uh, weak player compared to the immediate boss who are taking interview. So he
Are you
can
saying
actually
that?
not take over or compete with him or
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's what you're talking about. They're afraid of maybe losing their jobs or
yes,
getting demoted or something. Yeah,
right.
yeah. I hear you. So, Monty, in your book, Pulling Profits Out of a Hat, love that name. You discuss the 5 disciplines of exponential growth. Educate us here. What is that, please?
As I think about how businesses grow, it's got to be
Yeah.
about discipline of the organization, not about a specific person. And so the
Ah,
concepts that I teach my clients is around 5 disciplines that every business has to get right. The first discipline is strategy. Strategy is how we're going to win. So we've got
yeah.
to be clear on what our strategy is, how we're going to win, why we're unique, how we leverage the business, how do we grow. That's
Hmm.
strategy.
Yeah.
The second discipline is the discipline of business development. Business
Hmm.
development is marketing, sales, and customer service. The organization has to be disciplined in how we attract our customers, how we keep our customers, how we grow our customers. The
Yeah.
third discipline is about people. People are so important to an organization's success. There has to be a discipline around it. And that
Yeah.
discipline is creating leadership. It's how we recruit the right people. It's how we develop the right people.
Hmm.
So people is the third discipline. The fourth discipline is execution. We can have a great strategy, we can have the right business development, but if we're not implementing, if we don't have a routine of 90 days action plans, 90-day sprints, quarterly priorities, quarterly focus, we don't have the right discipline of how do we get things accomplished in our communication that we discipline or that we execute. When we execute well, the financials become our results. They happen. The fifth discipline is about mission. And when I talk about the discipline of mission, it's not necessarily about a mission statement. It's about who we are, what we believe in, what's our passion, what's our purpose, our core values, how we're giving back to our communities. That is about a discipline of mission. So it's really people buy into who we are and why we do the things that we do and how we do the things that we do that brings people together. So
Hmm.
that's the fifth discipline that I think is the underlying principle of everything else. They're all very important. If one discipline is out of alignment or one discipline isn't getting fully implemented, it impacts the rest of them. So
Hmm.
those 5 disciplines I believe are very powerful that it's about an organizational discipline, not about a person's discipline.
At the same time, the individuals on the team need to buy into that mission and vision. You know, the passion, they have to buy into that, right? Either because
Absolutely.
I've
And
worked.
that's
Yeah. Go ahead.
when you talk about having the right people on the team, they've got to believe in our culture. They've got to believe in our values. They've got to
Yeah.
believe in who we are as an organization. And every
Yeah.
organization is going to be different. Not every
Hmm.
person is going to be a great fit in every other organization. It's about finding the right people that match our desires, our future, our behaviors that we want to have as an organization. And that's how we attract the A players. That's how we keep the A players.
So, um, what do you believe are some of the really good people development strategies? Like, I'm an executive coach, for example. There's consulting, there's training. Like, what do you believe? What are the keys to really developing people so that they will buy into the company's mission and vision? What do you think needs to happen here?
I believe that every person in an organization should always have a personal development plan.
Mm,
And in that personal development plan, it's who they want to become, who they want to become as not only an
right.
individual, but as a player within the organization. What skills do they want to gain, both soft and hard skills. Everybody needs to have that personal development plan in an organization because that's how the organization grows, and including the executive team and the CEO. The executive team and the CEO are the ceiling of an organization. And if they're not growing, the organization can't grow. And it's got to work through the whole organization where everybody has that same belief of how are we growing and those core values. We should always be growing in our behaviors around those core values of how we're going to become better as a team, as an individual, as an organization in those areas. And that supports who we are and where we're going as an organization. So without that individual personal development plan and the focus on that, we aren't truly living our values and where we're headed and what we want to become.
Hmm. It would make sense to me. Thank you. It would make sense to me for a manager of their people to have at least quarterly meetings with each individual to see how they're doing with that personal plan, right? So they don't get lost. Something like that. Yeah. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's a conversation that should happen in one-on-ones. It should happen quarterly.
Mm,
It should happen annually in your development of the year, in your reviews, whatever it might be. But it's if I'm not reading something, if I'm not listening to a new podcast, if I'm not growing my skill sets, I'm not truly becoming the best that I can be for this organization. And
yes.
so as a manager, again, coming back to our first conversation, my biggest role as a manager is to create competent and productive people. And if I'm not helping my team in their growth, I'm not doing my job.
Yes. Absolutely. Good job. So, um, I'm a big believer in measurement of work, and how do you measure a client's return on investment from the work that you do? How do you measure that?
I think there's two components, and I make sure they touch every aspect of the business. One is the people side. How are we growing our team in their skills, in their behaviors, in their communication, in their interactions? How are we achieving our personal growth goals?
Yes.
The second aspect is how is the business growing? Because if we're not growing as an organization and our people aren't growing, then we're not achieving our results. So we've got to touch both aspects of it. And that's why I believe the five disciplines are so important that we've got to have a strategy. We've got to execute. We've got to develop our people. And if we're not measuring the impact of the results of growth of the organization and the growth of our people, we're not doing what we need to be doing as leaders and managers. And that's how you measure success is are our people growing and is the business growing because of their growth?
Right on. Okay. So I have another question which I think is really important. But before I ask it, Raj, is there a burning question you have for Monty today?
No,
No? Okay.
already he's explaining so
Already asked.
deeply.
Okay. So, well, Monty, what do you think is an ideal client coach relationship? What does that look like?
It's to me, the founding principles are about growth and development. It's about the individual growing, a desire to grow in their skill sets, a desire to grow their team, and a desire to grow their business. If those three things aren't in place, they don't have those desires of personally growing themselves, growing their team and the organization, it's going to be not a beneficial relationship. And the only way to grow those three things is to continue to learn, to get new skills, to get new ideas, to get new perspectives.
Yeah.
And so that is a ideal relationship and collaboration because growth is the foundation. And that's all about how are we improving our skill sets every day in how we interact, in our self-management, in our communication, and in how we're growing the business. So that's what I look for. If they're not willing to grow, then it's not going to be the right relationship. If they think that they're fine, but their team isn't, it's not going to work. Everybody has to have that belief and desire to grow in their skill sets.
Okay. Thank you for your great insights here today. And we encourage everyone to go to addzerosnow.com. You could see from our conversation here today that Monte is hugely experienced. I mean, we're talking massive, one of the top consultants I've ever spoken to over the years. And so really encourage you as a corporation, as a government entity, if you would like to really grow not only the business, but to grow your people who will help you grow your business, Monte's really a good fit for that. So thank you, Monte, for being here with us today. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
I'd love to add one more thing just for
Yeah.
your audience. I mentioned the big thing is alignment, keeping everyone aligned. If your audience is interested to see how aligned they are, I've got a brief assessment at coachmonte.com/podcast. And that you can download an assessment to see how clearly aligned you are or where the gaps are. And I think that would be a great tool for every executive team, CEO, leader that wants to grow. coachmonte.com/podcast.
Awesome. And this is going to show them the level of their alignment.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna go and look it up myself. Thank you, Monte. Great having you here today. Thank you. Thank you. It was a great conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.